Ladies and gentlemen, let's get real for a second. Most people out there are looking for the right person, but they haven't even become the right version of themselves yet. You want someone kind? Be kind to yourself. You want someone emotionally available? Heal the part of you that keeps chasing people who aren't. You want someone who listens, supports, respects, and loves you deeply? Amazing. But first, look in the mirror and ask, am I doing all of that for myself? The truth is, you don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. And if you're still tolerating the bare minimum, if you're still mistaking butterflies for chemistry and chaos for passion, then you're not ready for great love. You're still addicted to the chase. You're still performing. You're still building a relationship on hope instead of reality. I want you to write this down. Your self-worth sets the tone for the relationship you think you deserve. Let me say that again. Your self-worth sets the tone for the relationship you think you deserve. So if you're constantly attracting people who are inconsistent, emotionally unavailable, or just flat out exhausting, it's time to stop asking, what's wrong with them? And start asking, what am I still tolerating because I haven't set a higher standard for myself? Now I know that hurts. It's not easy to admit that sometimes the love we chase is actually a reflection of the pain we haven't healed. Maybe you watched your parents model a version of love that was chaotic or distant or conditional. Maybe you grew up thinking love meant proving your worth or earning someone's attention. So now you confuse silence with mystery, hot and cold with excitement, and being needed with being loved. But here's the truth. Healthy love feels peaceful, not performative. It feels secure, not suspenseful. And to find that, you have to become that. You have to do the inner work that makes you stop chasing people and start choosing yourself. Because the most magnetic thing in the world is someone who knows who they are, what they want, and isn't afraid to walk away from anything that doesn't match it. If you're in the room right now and you're waiting for someone to come and rescue you from your loneliness, let me lovingly tell you, they're not coming. You are not incomplete. You are not half of anything. You are whole. And from that wholeness, you get to choose a partner, not to save you, but to walk beside you, not to fix you, but to grow with you. So how do you find a great partner? You stop chasing and you start becoming. You stop asking, will they like me? And start asking, do I even like them? You stop showing up trying to impress, and you start showing up as your full, authentic self, unapologetic, unfiltered, unshaken. Because being a great partner doesn't start when you meet them. It starts when you finally meet yourself. It starts when you learn to hold space for your emotions. When you communicate with clarity and respect. When you stop playing games and you start setting boundaries. When you stop confusing drama with desire. You want great love? It starts with you. And the best part, you don't have to wait for anyone. You can start right now. Let me leave you with this. The love you're looking for is not in another person. It's in how you love yourself when no one's watching. That's the energy that changes everything. So stop settling. Stop performing. Stop waiting. Become the love you crave and watch how the world reflects it back. When you're constantly settling for less than you deserve, you're sending a signal to the world, and more importantly, to yourself, about what you think you're worth. And let me be blunt here. You attract what you tolerate. That's not just a catchy phrase. It's a reality. Check. If you keep entertaining relationships where your needs are dismissed, your boundaries are crossed, or your values are ignored, then you're not attracting love. You're enabling mistreatment and calling it a romance. We've been conditioned to believe that if we just love someone hard enough, they'll rise up and meet us where we are. But that's a lie. Love isn't a rescue mission. It's not your job to fix people. It's not your job to shrink yourself so you can fit into someone's limited capacity to love. The moment you start tolerating crumbs, you start teaching others that you'll stay hungry just to keep someone at the table. And that's not love. That's emotional starvation. If you've ever been in a relationship where you were waiting for them to finally choose you, to text back, to show up, to love you the way you deserve, you know how draining that is. And somewhere deep down, you probably knew it wasn't right. But you stayed because you didn't want to be alone. Because you thought that maybe, just maybe, if you were a little more patient or a little more understanding, they'd change. And you know what that is? That's you tolerating emotional breadcrumbs in the hope of a full-course meal. And that doesn't make you loyal. It makes you unavailable to something better. You want a partner who values you? Start by valuing yourself enough to walk away from anyone who doesn't. Raise your standards, not as a threat, but as a promise to yourself. You don't need to lower your voice to be heard. You don't need to dim your light so someone else can shine. You don't need to accept almost a maybe, a sometimes, and call it love. One of the biggest myths people believe is that being easygoing and tolerant is a virtue in love. Let me tell you, being easygoing with your standards leads to hard lessons. There's a difference between compassion and complacency. You can be kind and still say, "This isn't good enough for me." You can be patient and still have a limit. You can be understanding and still walk away. Every time you compromise on your non-negotiables, you erode your trust in yourself. Every time you silence your gut just to keep the peace, you wage war with your own intuition. And over time, you don't even recognize yourself anymore. You start asking, why do I always attract emotionally unavailable people? But the question you should be asking is, why do I keep making myself available to them? Let's get really honest here. If you have to chase it, beg for it, wait for it, earn it, it's not love. Love doesn't make you prove your worth. It sees it. And if someone can't see your value without you constantly trying to convince them, then they're not your person. The right relationship will never require you to abandon yourself. And when you raise your standards, yes, fewer people may be able to meet them, but that's the point. Because you're no longer entertaining the ones who can't love you the way you need to be loved. And don't confuse being alone with being lonely. Being alone is peace. It's power. It's the space you give yourself to grow, to reconnect, to heal. Loneliness, on the other hand, is what you feel when you're surrounded by people who don't really see you. I'd rather be single and whole than attached and hollow. I'd rather wait for alignment than settle for attention. When you raise your standards, you stop tolerating emotional inconsistency. You stop waiting for someone to change. You stop measuring your worth by how much you're willing to endure. You start choosing people who show up, who are honest, who make the effort, who love you in ways that feel secure, not suspenseful. Here's a truth that might sting. Sometimes the person who's hurting you the most is the one you keep making excuses for. But your heart isn't a rehab center. Your love isn't a lifeline, and your time is not an unlimited resource. Protect your energy like your future depends on it, because it does. And listen, this isn't about becoming bitter. It's about becoming better. Becoming better, more discerning, more self-aware, more clear on what you need and what you absolutely won't tolerate anymore. You're not asking for too much. You're just asking the wrong people. When you stop tolerating the bare minimum, you make space for someone who can actually meet you at your maximum. So today, make a decision, not out of desperation, not out of loneliness, but out of deep, unshakable love for yourself. Raise your standards, raise your hand to say no, raise your voice to speak your truth, and raise your energy so high that anyone who wants to be in your life has to rise to meet you. We live in a culture that romanticizes the idea of finding your other half, as if you're walking around incomplete, waiting for someone else to fill in the missing pieces. But here's the truth most people avoid. A great romantic partner does not complete you. They complement the already healed, whole version of you. The problem is, most of us are trying to date from a place of pain, from a place of lack, from a place of trauma. And then we wonder why we end up in relationships that feel more like emotional boot camps than partnerships. You cannot expect someone else to do the work you've been avoiding. If you're still carrying unresolved wounds, still holding on to bitterness from the past, still haunted by the fear of abandonment, then no partner, no matter how loving, loyal, or emotionally available, can rescue you from that. Because love can't land where healing hasn't happened. You have to do the work. You have to become the healed version of yourself so you can attract love that feels like peace, not pressure. The danger is when we confuse compatibility with codependency. We think that they make me feel needed, seen, wanted. But what we're really saying is, they feed a wound I've never taken time to understand. And that's not love. That's trauma bonding. That's why you keep repeating the same cycle with different faces. It's why you're attracted to people who mirror your childhood dynamics, not your adult desires. You're not falling in love. You're falling into patterns. When you're unhealed, love feels like survival. You tolerate inconsistency, chase validation, and call it passion. But when you're healed, love feels like safety. You set boundaries, communicate clearly, and stop mistaking emotional chaos for connection. Healing changes what and who you find attractive. Think about it. How many times have you told yourself, but we have so much chemistry? Let's be honest. Chemistry isn't always healthy. Sometimes it's your nervous system recognizing familiar dysfunction and calling it love. Your anxiety shouldn't be confused with excitement. If you feel like you're constantly guessing where you stand with someone, that's not chemistry. That's emotional instability. Being whole doesn't mean being perfect. It means being aware. It means knowing your patterns, owning your story, and refusing to project your pain onto someone else. It means recognizing when you're being triggered and choosing to respond differently. It means not asking your partner to carry wounds that were never theirs to begin with. And it means showing up in a relationship not to be completed, but to share your completeness. When you've done the work to heal, you stop approaching love like a performance. You're not auditioning for someone's affection. You're not contorting yourself into a version you think they'll approve of. You're not dimming your lights so they'll shine. You're showing up as you, unapologetic, honest, grounded. And from that space, you attract people who respect your authenticity instead of demanding your conformity. And let's talk about emotional availability. Everyone says they want it, but few people know what it really means. It means being vulnerable, not performative. It means listening without trying to fix. It means showing up, even when it's hard. And here's the kicker. You can't ask someone else to be emotionally available if you're emotionally shut down. If you're still guarded, still reactive, still hiding behind a wall of sarcasm or silence, then you're not ready to receive the very love you say you want. So the best question you can ask yourself isn't, where's my person? It's, am I being the kind of partner I want to attract? Am I communicating with maturity? Am I respecting my own boundaries? Am I living a life that reflects self-love? Or am I still outsourcing my worth to people who can't even show up consistently? The foundation of every healthy relationship isn't chemistry. It's clarity. It's a clarity. Clarity about who you are, what you want, what you deserve, and what you're no longer available for. Without that, even the most passionate connection will crumble under the weight of unmet expectations and unresolved pain. Healing is not optional if you want real love. It's mandatory. It's mandatory. Because otherwise you will keep trying to get from others what you need to give yourself validation, safety, worth. And you'll keep being disappointed when they can't provide it. Not because they're bad people, but because that's not their job. That's your responsibility. Here's the thing. When you're healed, you won't settle for potential. You'll look for alignment. You won't be impressed by someone who texts back quickly. You'll be drawn to someone who communicates consistently. You won't chase emotionally unavailable people. You'll be turned off by them. Because the healed version of you recognizes your value and refuses to play games. And when two people meet from that place of wholeness, self-awareness, emotional maturity, that's when real love happens. Not a rescue mission, not a drama-filled highs and lows roller coaster, but a grounded, connected, evolving love that doesn't just feel good. It is good. So stop looking for your other half. You're not a half. You're a whole damn person. Own it, heal it, live it. And when love shows up, it won't be to complete you. It'll be to complement the masterpiece you already are. And we talk a lot about falling in love, but not nearly enough about staying in love. And that takes emotional maturity. Emotional maturity isn't about age or how many relationships you've had. It's about how you show up. It's about being able to handle hard conversations without blowing things up. It's about being able to sit in discomfort and still choose connection over ego. Because here's the truth. Love isn't a feeling. It's a choice made over and over again, especially when it's inconvenient. When you lack emotional maturity, your relationships become battlegrounds for unresolved trauma. You project. You shut down. You punish with silence. You explode over small things because you haven't dealt with the big ones. You expect your partner to read your mind, to fix your moods, to manage your insecurities. And when they can't do that, because they're human, you label them as not enough. But the reality is, No one can meet you in a space you haven't cleaned up yourself. Mature love looks different. Mature love looks different. It's not glamorous or movie script perfect. It's not built on grand gestures or constant dopamine highs. It's built in the small, often unnoticed choices. It's built when you disagree but choose to listen instead of lash out. It's built when you hold space for someone else's truth, even if it challenges your own. It's built in the moments you resist the urge to prove a point and instead prioritize understanding. And here's what emotional maturity also means. It means knowing that not every feeling needs a reaction, that your emotions are valid, but they're your responsibility. You can be triggered without turning it into a scene. You can be disappointed without destroying the connection. You can feel hurt and still speak with respect. That is real strength. That is self-leadership. And in relationships, it's everything. When you're emotionally mature, you communicate with clarity, not manipulation. You don't threaten to leave every time things get hard. You don't weaponize vulnerability. You don't keep score, throw the past in someone's face, or use guilt to control. You're direct, not passive-aggressive. You're honest, not brutal. And you seek to resolve, not just to win. The thing is, love will expose every part of you that still needs healing. It will show you your own reflection, your insecurities, your fears, your attachment wounds. And you've got two choices: numb out and blame your partner, or lean in and grow. Because emotional maturity isn't about never being triggered. It's about how you handle those triggers when they come up. People often confuse intensity with intimacy. They think arguing all the time is passion. That jealousy is a sign someone cares. That walking on eggshells is part of being in love. No, that's emotional instability masquerading as romance. Real intimacy is boring to the unhealed. It looks like showing up, like being consistent, like telling the truth even when it's uncomfortable. For your partner's pain without making it about you. Let me say this clearly. If your version of love involves constant anxiety, confusion, or drama, that's not love. That's a cycle. And cycles don't break unless you do the inner work. And yes, it's hard. Yes, it requires self-awareness, self-regulation, and the humility to admit that you might be part of the problem. But the reward is a love that doesn't drain you. It develops you. You can't keep expecting healthy love while refusing to grow up emotionally. You can't demand deep connection when you're unwilling to be deeply honest. That means taking ownership. That means having uncomfortable conversations without attacking. That means letting go of needing to be right, so the relationship can win instead of your ego. One of the greatest acts of emotional maturity, learning how to pause. Pause before you speak in anger. Pause before you send that reactive text. Pause before you assume the worst. That pause is where growth happens. That pause is where you break the pattern. That pause is where love has a chance to breathe. Also, emotional maturity means choosing to see your partner as a human being, not a fantasy, not a villain, not a mind reader. A human being with flaws, fears, and a past, just like you. And when you can accept that, when you can meet them in their mess and still choose compassion, you create a space for real connection. Now, none of this means tolerating bad behavior. Boundaries are still non-negotiable, but it does mean recognizing the difference between a red flag and a growth opportunity. Emotional maturity allows you to see when your partner is doing the work, even if they're not perfect. It allows you to hold grace and accountability. And listen, this work is ongoing. You don't wake up one day perfectly emotionally mature. It's a journey of learning, unlearning, stumbling, and trying again. But every step you take toward emotional growth improves every relationship in your life, not just romantic ones. Because emotionally mature people elevate the energy of any space they walk into. They create safety, clarity, and depth. So if you want a great partner, become one. Show up, stay present, speak clearly, own your stuff, and love not just with your heart, but with your character. Because emotional maturity is the bridge between attraction and longevity. It's the secret sauce. And it will take your relationships from surface level to soul deep every single time. If you want to attract and keep a great romantic partner, you have to learn the art of communication. Not just talking, but real, vulnerable, honest, self-aware communication. Most people think they're good communicators because they talk a lot, but that's not it. Great communication isn't about how much you say. It's about what you say, why you say it, and whether you create safety with your words. Let's be brutally honest for a second. How many arguments in your relationships weren't really about what you were fighting about? What you were fighting about. It wasn't about the dishes, the text message, the weekend plans. It was about feeling unseen, unheard, disrespected, dismissed. And instead of saying that, instead of showing up with the truth, we throw up walls, lash out, or go cold. That's not communication. That's fear in disguise. And fear builds distance, not intimacy. Real communication requires emotional courage. It asks you to be vulnerable, not just vocal. That means being willing to say, I feel hurt, instead of you're so selfish. It means choosing, I need more consistency over you never care. It means owning your emotions instead of dumping them on someone else. And that's hard because we've been taught that vulnerability is weakness, when in reality, it's your superpower in love. When you can name your needs without shaming your partner, you create a space for connection instead of conflict. But most of us haven't been taught how to do this. We've been taught how to argue, how to win, how to defend, but not how to listen, not how to validate, not how to create understanding. And it shows. Let me say this loud and clear. You don't need to agree with someone to validate their feelings. You just need to understand that their emotional experience is real to them. If your partner says, I felt ignored when you didn't respond, the worst thing you can say is, hey, that's ridiculous. The best thing you can say is, I hear you. That wasn't my intention, but I understand how you felt that way. That's emotional intelligence in action. That's love in action. You know what else gets in the way of great communication? Assumptions. We assume what our partner meant. We assume what they're thinking. We assume their silence is rejection. And assumptions are the termites of connection. They quietly erode trust from the inside out. You want to stop the spiral? Ask questions instead of jumping to conclusions. Clarify before you criticize. Learn to pause and seek truth before reacting from fear. And listen, the words you don't say, they matter too. The lack of affirmation, the quiet withdrawal, the unspoken expectations. Silence can be just as loud as shouting when it comes to emotional distance. That's why regular check-ins with your partner are critical. Not just a how was your day, but how are we doing? Is there anything I've been missing? How can I support you better? And yeah, that's maintenance for emotional intimacy. Without it, you drift. With it, you deepen. Also, tone matters. Delivery matters. You can say the right thing the wrong way and still create disconnection. I need space can feel like rejection if said with coldness. I'm upset can feel like an attack if it's laced with sarcasm. Your tone is the emotional packaging of your message. If you want to be heard, don't just speak, connect. Don't just unload, relate. And timing, crucial. Don't bring up heavy issues when you or your partner are exhausted, distracted, or already in a reactive state. Know when to pause. Know when to say, oh, let's talk about this when we're both clear-headed. That's not avoidance, that's strategy. That's respect. And let's talk about listening, real listening, not waiting for your turn to speak, not mentally preparing your rebuttal while the other person is talking, but actually being present, putting down the phone, looking them in the eye, leaning in with curiosity, asking follow-up questions, reflecting back what you heard. Because people don't want to feel fixed. They want to feel felt. When both partners commit to communicating this way, everything changes. Conflicts don't disappear, but they stop feeling like battles. Needs stop feeling like demands. Emotions stop feeling like threats. And love stops feeling like guesswork. But this also requires one more thing. You must stop assuming that your way of communicating is the right way. We all come from different backgrounds, different families, different emotional blueprints. Amen. And what feels like honesty to you might feel like aggression to someone else. What feels like silence to you might feel like peace to them. Learning your partner's language, what safety sounds like to them, is part of the work. So if you want to build a deep, lasting relationship, ask yourself this. Am I creating safety when I speak? Am I communicating to connect or to control? Am I bringing curiosity or just criticism? Am I saying what's true or what's easy? Because the answers to those questions will determine the depth of your intimacy more than any romantic gesture ever could. Communication is the bloodstream of every relationship. If it's healthy, the relationship thrives. If it's toxic, everything starts shutting down. So show up. Speak clearly. Listen deeply. Validate generously. And remember that every time you choose connection over ego, you're not just improving your relationship. You're elevating the quality of your life. Let's be honest. What truly holds most relationships back isn't lack of love. It's lack of accountability. We talk a lot about wanting loyalty, honesty, compassion in a partner, but we rarely stop to ask ourselves, am I showing up that way? We expect emotional maturity, communication, and effort from the other person while excusing our own inconsistencies. But if you want to be a great romantic partner and find one in return, accountability isn't optional. It's the foundation. When you don't hold yourself accountable, you become the victim of every story. You blame your partner for how you feel.
You blame your partner.
You make them responsible for your healing, your happiness, your unmet expectations. And when they inevitably fail to meet all those invisible standards, you resent them. But here's the truth. Your emotions are your responsibility. Your patterns are your responsibility. Your responsibility. And the sooner you own that, the sooner your relationship will shift. Because accountability doesn't mean blaming yourself for everything. It means being honest with yourself about your part in the dynamic. Maybe you avoid conflict and then explode. Maybe you expect mind reading instead of clearly expressing your needs. Maybe you withhold love when you're hurt. We all have patterns, but unexamined patterns become relationship killers. And the only way to stop repeating the same cycles is to recognize when you're the one repeating them for 10. You want to grow in love? Ask yourself hard questions. When was the last time I apologized without justifying it? When was the last time I listened without interrupting? When was the last time I checked in with how I might be contributing to the tension, not just reacting to it? Accountability asks you to pause, reflect, and own it. This kind of self-leadership is powerful because it disarms defensiveness. When you can say, you're right, I've been distracted lately, or I didn't show up the way I wanted to in that conversation, you create space for trust to breathe. Your partner no longer has to fight to be heard because you're already listening. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you safe. And safety is sexy. Safety is what creates emotional intimacy that lasts. And here's the thing about high accountability people, they don't avoid feedback. They invite it. They want to know how they can be better, not because they're insecure, but because they're committed to growth. And when two people in a relationship take this approach, everything changes. You stop trying to win arguments and start trying to win together. You stop pointing fingers and start holding hands through the hard stuff. You stop reacting from wounds and start responding from wisdom. But this only works when both partners understand that accountability isn't a punishment. It's a privilege. It's how you show your partner, I care enough about us to grow beyond my default behavior. It's saying, wow, I see the mess I bring, and I'm willing to clean it up. That's real love. Not just chemistry or compatibility, but character. Also, part of accountability is knowing when you're not ready for a relationship. A lot of people jump into love hoping it will heal them. But relationships magnify what's already there. If you're deeply insecure, love will highlight it. If you're emotionally unavailable, love will expose it. And that doesn't mean you need to be perfect. It means you need to be aware. You want to be a great partner. Do the hard work when no one's watching. Go to therapy. Read the books. Journal. Reflect. Heal. Learn how to regulate your emotions. Learn how to stay calm when you're triggered. Learn how to speak with clarity and compassion, even when you're angry. That's not extra credit. That's the assignment. And guess what? Holding others accountable is just as important. Being a great partner doesn't mean being a doormat. It doesn't mean tolerating disrespect or inconsistency. It means having standards and empathy. It means being able to say, I love you, and I won't accept this behavior. It means being kind without abandoning yourself. Because if you're always making excuses for someone else's lack of effort, you're enabling, not loving. There's a balance. Self-accountability doesn't mean accepting all the blame, and it doesn't mean fixing everything alone. It means knowing when you've messed up, making it right, and expecting the same from your partner. Love without mutual accountability becomes lopsided, and resentment is born where balance is lost. Let's be real. This is the work most people avoid. It's way easier to post a quote about a matching energy or knowing your worth than it is to sit down and ask, how am I showing up? But emotional adults don't chase comfort. They chase truth. And the truth is, the version of you that attracts and sustains a great relationship is the version that doesn't run from accountability. So start small. Practice saying, I was wrong. I could have handled that better. And mean it. And better. Watch how that shifts the energy in your relationship. Watch how much more open your partner becomes when you lead with ownership. Because love isn't just about what you feel. It's about what you build. And accountability is the brick that holds it all together. Stop waiting for the other person to change first. Be the shift. Be the upgrade. Be the safe place. Because when you lead with accountability, you don't just attract a better relationship, you become one.